Oh, baby, that countdown gets me fired up every time. The 2 times we've done it, it's like, oh, man, it gets you in the mood to talk a little Dynasty, a little rookie rankings action. And tonight we have, I'm very excited for this guest. Just met him like briefly beforehand, but I'm a super big fan of what he's doing on YouTube. Who do we have tonight? Matt Babich as a guest.
We have the FF Dynasty, Casey Myers. We're in tune for a great show. We're kind of talking backstage about, we have a long show sheet full of questions. We're talking about just coming through our rankings. This is going to be an incredible show discussing rankings with one of the better Dynasty assets out there, the FF Dynasty. You can find him on Twitter. You can find him on his own productions, and you're going to be able to, if you don't know him now, you're going to get to know him tonight on the Dynasty Roundtable.
And the show starts right now. And there he is, Casey. Welcome to the show at FF Dynasty on YouTube. Welcome, man.
Hey, what's good, guys? Appreciate you having me. It was a pleasure getting to know you a little bit before we get started, and I'm excited to see what you guys have in store so we can yell at each other about something here.
There we go. Let the yelling begin. So first and foremost, the number one question I have as you were watching the draft from round 1, day 2, it doesn't matter. From a Dynasty fantasy football perspective, what was like your biggest takeaway, or what were some takeaways that you had like immediately once some of these picks started coming in?
Yeah, it was all, fairly chalk for the most part, especially through that first round. But, I think that was good for the top end of your Dynasty picks. We typically talk Superflex tight end premium, so that's where my brain is a lot of the time. So if I'm misspeaking, let me know. But that was good for that top half of the high end guys. That 1 through 6, 7, 8, and then the back half of that. Once we got into day 2, really got good. Gave you some gave you some quarterbacks, or that was round 1 rather. But really, I think my biggest takeaway was that your first round and stretching well into your second round of Dynasty Superflex tight end premium rookie drafts just got a whole lot more valuable, right? It's regardless of kind of where you are, you can be rebuilding with the rookies because of everything so valuable, and the court of public opinion, rightfully so, I think is going to back that up. You kind of have freedom to kind of do whatever you want, whatever position you're in with your Dynasty team. If you're at the end of it and you're a good team, you could trade out and get a known asset instead of going down that road of whether this rookie's going to hit or not. Or if you're rebuilding and you have a bunch of picks, you can just take all those lottery tickets. But feels like you really got a nice little golden ticket here through, maybe even 3.5 rounds through Dynasty, at least Superflex tight end premium. So how about you guys?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. This draft with these landing spots gives you so much flexibility to execute really whatever strategy you're looking to go for. And the thing I love to do most in rookie drafts is just let the draft happen. I don't want to over pursue anything, because especially when there's a surplus of what we perceive to be fantasy friendly landing spots going on, that's just going to increase the variation in other people's Dynasty ranks. So I'm in a rookie draft right now where like Brian Thomas, who many people won't have, in the going past the mid-second round, is slowly falling. And if I traded up and spent capital to go get a marginally less, more beneficial wide receiver, probably would have regretted that given where I stand. So I really, this is going to be a very fun rookie draft season for me as someone who likes to just let the draft come to them, trade back, let people over pursue their guys, because there are so many friendly landing spots where I can settle on trading back and taking Audric Estime instead of pressing the button on Blake Corum at ADP, for example. And another thing that was interesting to me is no one really wanted running backs in rookie mock drafts a couple months ago. And now all of a sudden we have all these running backs in friendly landing spots, and somehow they're all mostly priced efficiently. And Benson goes to Arizona, Brooks to Carolina, Corum to LA. right to Miami. Estime in Denver's a great landing spot. Marshawn Lloyd and Green Bay, and that's just half of the running backs that got drafted. I could have listed a few more. So we've completely turned the coin on running backs now because of how this draft played out, and it's going to be interesting to see how these values start to fluctuate as more rookie drafts come to a close.
Yeah, you guys did a nice, wonderfully said. I definitely think the takeaway was this. There have been some NFL drafts that were not good for fantasy. I think this is one of the better ones for fantasy that I can remember in recent history. And there might be one that's escaping me, but what was there, like 14 straight offensive players taken? I know some of those are offensive tackles and whatnot, but still, you had even Michael Penix and Bo Nix, who we'll talk about later, sneaking up into the first round. And I was very skeptical if those quarterbacks were going to go in the first round, and they did. And not only did they, but Michael Penix shocks the world. The Falcons shocked the world, and they go with him at number 8. So again, we'll get into it, but that was like my number one takeaway is like, oh my God. And these running backs, the landing spots, even on down to Kamani Vidal and Rashid B, like to land in Baltimore and the Chargers. I know we're talking 5th and 6th round picks, but we were preaching to our listeners and our subscribers, like if you can get in trades, if it's not going to be too much extra work for you to ask for an extra 3rd, ask for an extra 4th round rookie pick, do it. And if you can make that happen, because we're in a world right now where heck, Roman Wilson's probably late 2nd, early 3rd, somewhere, depending on how you have him ranked. So there's going to be some wild like values that you're going to be able to scoop up in these 3rd rounds of rookie drafts. But let's get into some of these rookies, Casey. Like now that we have the answers to the tests, right? We have the landing spots. What are some of these rookies that you're targeting at their current value?
Yeah, I think the easy answer kind of hinges off of the first question of, that second set of big wide receivers really all got good landing spots, right? Brian Thomas was pretty solid. Worthy is awesome. Ladd is right in there for me, and that was awesome. Then you go down to guys like Keon, who maybe wasn't your favorite, but he got a good favorable landing spot. All these guys are getting good spot and capital all the way to Ricky Pearsall, right? Regardless of what you think of him, like the capital's good, and is this, how do you not trust that franchise, at least offensively, right? So to me, the biggest one was night 1 ending and being like, oh, I really like Ladd. How far is this slide going to go? And Pearsall kind of went, and then Ladd went to the Chargers. So for me, that's, him staying at the, back half of the first round for me, that's a huge target. I would say Xavier Worthy was very high for me as well. And he goes to Kansas City. That's huge. You guys hit it with the running backs a little bit. I think both, at least the 2 highest rated ones that I had, Jonathan Brooks, I think most people, in Benson, both get great landing spots. So they kind of stay, if we're talking super flex, tight end premium for me, right on the turn of that 2-1 to 2-4 area. So those guys are all great targets. I know those are high end targets, and we're going to talk about some further back targets as we get down the sheet a little bit. But how about you guys?
Matt Babich, is there a particular, like you talked about Estime, like you brought up Audric Estime right away, and we have Cody Carpentier on Twitter basically shouting at Javonte Williams' death sentence. So is Audric Estime? I hate to put you on the spot, but you said Audric Estime, and I was like, wow, he said Audric Estime.
Yeah, funny enough, it wasn't even one I really prepped on the show sheet. I did tune into this morning's episode of Wake and Take with Jason Allwine, and he had Matty Kiwoom on, and they were talking about him. They did a rookie mock draft, and he got a good landing spot. And originally, part of why I was out was because of the perceived analytics, but and the athletic profile, which his speed at the combine, from what I understand, is a little underestimated. He ran a little bit slower.
Underestimated,
as some would say.
I like the accent that you're putting on his name. I hadn't heard. Makes him sound awful exotic.
I don't know if that's actually how it's pronounced, to be honest. You hear different people say different people's last names, and I just kind of cling on to a pronunciation, but it certainly sounds a little bit more fancy. But he got a fancy landing spot. Javonte Williams really should have cooked last year, given the opportunity that he was in Sean Payton's offense. And I know the offense had their struggles, but his opportunity share wasn't exactly where we wanted it to be. Didn't seem like Sean Payton was super committed to him. And then he goes out and drafts a running back with a lot to offer this offense. And it's just interesting, Sean Payton comes in here and starts taking his own receivers and starts, and now he takes a running back. And I think he's in a position to have some day one opportunity. I think right now he's a late second round pick that I'm happy pulling the trigger on, just because I don't necessarily like Blake Corum at cost. Like, I think that's kind of a tier break, and JaLynn Wright continues to rise to where if I'm in the back end of the second round, I'm not very confident I'm getting JaLynn Wright on my team at this point. So he's kind of that back where if I'm sitting in the mid to high second round pick and I can trade back and get Audric Plus for a guy who wants to take Corum, like, that's a deal I'm interested in. I just think his value right now is not necessarily matched with the projected touch load, which I think he can absolutely compete with Corum in terms of total touches this year. But my gross pick actually comes from the same team, and it's Troy Franklin. So we know that Troy Franklin's not a first round pick, and thusly he is no longer mocked anywhere close to first round capital. But now he's sitting as a mid third round pick, and he, unless there's somebody that I missed completely, he's going to be a starter on this team unless he completely flames out in rookie camp. Jerry Jeudy's gone. Sean Payton showed no urgency to get Marvin Mims on the field for offensive situations last year. And Cortland Sutton is currently unhappy with his contract situation. So I generally don't bet on any sort of holdout or forced trade situations, but there's also the shower narrative. And I know it's kind of funny to talk about, a quarterback gets his receiver from college, but if Troy Franklin's going to be a starting receiver on an NFL team tethered to a quarterback where he just gained 1,300 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns with at Oregon, I am more than happy to spend a mid-third round pick taking a flyer on that opportunity. I'll miss happily any day of the week, but he has more guaranteed opportunity coming to him from what I can see than most of those third-round receivers. You can argue a Jalen Polk or a Javon Baker, maybe. I know those two are generally going before Franklin still. But I think where Franklin is, like, you don't have to make that decision. If you're sitting at 3-5, Baker and Polk are gone, and you're in this new tier where Troy Franklin, I think, is the top value.
Yeah, I think you can steal away. I mean, even before the landing spot, we knew like Troy Franklin was just sliding because of the gauntlet, NFL combine drill where he was running like John Gruden instructed the people to run in the Corona commercial, serpentine, son, like he was running like a snake, just not going down that straight line. And I don't know, like the NFL combine, it means something, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. And Troy Franklin's tape, we had John Lobb on here. Really like Troy Franklin. I really liked Troy Franklin before the NFL combine. So yeah, I think there's a bit of when these things happen, like overreaction to that one moment in a player's, pathway to becoming a prospect.
There's so much
that goes on. To that.
Like, there's so much that goes on during the combine. These guys are getting up at 5 a.m., getting a workout in the hallway, getting breakfast from a hotel, like going to media pressers for probably like the first time really in their lives. And then it all rides on how they perform at like 6 p.m. after they've been up for 12 hours doing all these things. And if he just would have sat out like a lot of other players did, it's a real question of like, would he have been a mid-second round pick? Like, could he have been that fringe first round pick he was originally getting mocked at? And so I think it says something that Sean Payton went out and made him the second receiver that he's ever drafted. And clearly there was some communication there. I'm saying, like, we want to get Bo Nix a guy he's comfortable with. And to think that doesn't mean anything to me is a little silly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of merit to that, and I think you're right. I think Troy Franklin's going to be a value. For me, it was, and I was really excited about this because I've been touting this guy for a long time, and it's Jermaine Burton for me, landing with the Bengals. This is a guy like before the draft, like leading up to the draft, Theo's like, "Hey Seth, your boy Jermaine Franklin's a knucklehead. Apparently, like he's a bad locker room guy. He's like at 8 schools in 6 years or something. I can't remember exactly what he told me, but obviously he started at Georgia, transferred to Alabama, but I just really like what I saw of him on the film. And then I think it was reception perception spoke really highly of him too. And so that kind of confirmed, or it was at least like, okay, I'm not crazy. And then the Bengals take him in the 3rd round. And I'm thinking, for all the knuckleheads like in the world, like there couldn't be a better spot than the Cincinnati Bengals. You'd have to be a real idiot to walk in there. And maybe he is. I have no idea. I've never met Jermaine Burton before. You'd have to be a real idiot to walk in there and go, yeah, Joe Burrow, yeah, whatever. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Like, I know you guys have been to the Super Bowl before, but I'm Jermaine Burton, baby. Like, it feels like one of the best situations that he could walk into. And it might not be this year, might not be 2024 because T. Higgins is still there. But, taking Jermaine Burton in the future could be a really solid pick. I mean, obviously, it just depends on how the ADP shakes out. He's probably late 2nd, early 3rd. He's probably in that, Roman Wilson category, I would guess, although I do love Roman Wilson's landing spot too. I mean, come on, with Pittsburgh. So that was just, some takeaways for me. But what do you think, Casey, of like Jermaine Burton or any Troy Franklin, or throw in anything you want to?
I really like the Burton call out there. I've been in a live rookie draft. We're probably closing in on the end of the 3rd round now, and then we've been rebuilding our ADP, so we've been firing off a bunch of mocks over here, and typically, super flex side and premium, kind of seeing them 3-1 to 3-4, 3-5 right now, and that's I'm 100% down to take shots on Burton anywhere, and at the end of the 2nd to that area, like it's all upside at that point. Yeah, the knuckleheadness is built in there, and like you said, you're in a spot where T. Higgins is on a 1-year deal. We'll see what happens, and you're tied to Joe Burrow. I know, sometimes it just needs to be that simple, right? And then you mentioned reception perception. I believe, his man-to-man coverage beating is only second to Marvin Harrison and Rome Odunze. So the speed is really good. His quickness, his change of direction is really good. That's a guy that I'd love to take a bunch of shots on. I'd be willing to trade up, into those early 3rds to grab a guy like Jermaine Burton and really Troy Franklin as well. I was kind of hot on him in the beginning and kind of cooled on him a little bit. Obviously, the gauntlet drill kind of happens, and then he starts to slide. The NFL draft starts to slide. But like you said, I mean, you take away points for capital and where he landed, but then I think you do have to add back some points in to say that you're, what's the quarterback going to do? Who's, I can't imagine they're going to, a lot of those other quarterbacks walked into places where, hey, you very well may not start at least 2 or 3 of them, but they almost have to start Bo Nix to start with. It's Stidham and Zach Wilson, right? So, who's the guy, like you guys said, threw for had the most air yards to any player on the team was Troy Franklin, and Nix does kind of fit that system. It's like death of 1,000 paper cuts and then the shots, and you're getting shots with Troy Franklin there. Like you said, I mean, now they do love to start guys like, guys who have 2, Brandon Johnson that you never heard of. And they like to start, back in the day, Marquez Callaway and Kirkwood. Those were all Sean Payton guys on the Saints. He loves to just throw those guys in there, almost like I'm smarter than you. So he can get a little wonky sometimes, but I do like both of those shots and both of those guys later on. But it just speaks to kind of how this draft has played out and how much value you're, like we started the show off, that you're getting in the back ends of these 2nds and 3rds here.
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to transition to some of the debate questions. Like, so we have Bo Nix, we were talking about Bo Nix and Michael Penix finding their way into the top 12 in the NFL draft, with Matt Penix getting picked at, pick number 8 and shocking the world like I talked about before. And when that happened, my first, because I'm a dynasty sicko, is like, okay, how far up do I raise Penix in my dynasty superflex ranking? So I'm going to ask you that question, Casey. Like, how far up the rankings have Penix and Nix risen for you?
Well, so I'm a Penix guy. So,
okay,
if the capital was all the same, and I had JJ McCarthy and Penix the same, kind of back end of the first round already. Now Penix for me, JJ has leaped up into that 7th-ish area for Superflex rankings, and Penix has probably stayed the same, right? I don't think I can't warrant jumping him up, even though I like him a lot, because we just don't know what the situation is going to be for Michael Penix. He got the capital, but if everything goes really well, he sits for maybe 2 years, and then they do end up maybe cutting with Kirk Cousins. But everybody hates the pick from the Falcons, but I'm like, y'all were just in QB purgatory for 2 years. You couldn't get out of your own way. I'm not going to be damn somebody for grabbing a guy that they really like, they really believe in, and then potentially let him sit for a little while. And I know it's not Jordan Love because he's not that young, but like if there was an analytical percentage of some sort of what the Packers have done, they've hit 3 in a row now of letting a guy draft him and sit behind another good professional quarterback. You say what you want about Kirk, but that's a good player. Now, is he going to be a little bit of a jerk? Reports initially were, and I think in prior maybe he has done that. But for me, I really like Michael Penix, so I've got Michael Penix right at 112 in Superflex tight end premium, and then Bo Nix actually kind of same tier right below him. I'm taking those 2 quarterbacks on the turn right at the end of the first round. I got Nix. I'll take Penix over Nix still, but I got to give Nix the nod because Nick's is going to walk right in there and play. And while I didn't love Nix, he was probably mid-second for me in Superflex rankings coming into this. I do think that this is a really good fit for kind of his play style, at least when you saw him at Oregon, where he thrived. Like everything's close to the line of scrimmage, check it down, get it out of your hand. That's how Sean Payton operates. That's that's not by any way shape or form saying Bo Nix is Drew Brees, but I mean, this is kind of what best case scenario for Bo Nix, I think, landing with a guy like Sean Payton. Now, has Sean Payton's time passed him by? I don't know. It seems like some questionable decisions. I didn't really like the way he handled things last year with Russell, regardless of what you think of Russell. He's not my favorite guy, but it seemed like, y'all are 2 grown men, figure it out. But that being said, like I said, I like the way that Nix is going to come in here and be brought along by Payton and operate Payton's system. So I got those guys right at the back end of the first, top of the second. How about you guys?
Yeah, that's where I got him. Yeah, that's exactly where I like it. I had just have Nix flipped. I apologize. I went out of turn there. But I have Nix ahead of Penix just for the fact that we play Dynasty in these 2 to 3 year windows, and I don't know when Penix is going to get on the field. From a talent perspective, Penix is better, but from a Dynasty fantasy football perspective, I give Nix the nod there. Yeah. But Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think I laughed because we all agreed, but within that, I think we sparked the debate of Nix versus Penix because we all agree that they're in that range of first round picks. So I like the way that Scott Connor kind of put it, where if you're buying Michael Penix or if you're drafting Michael Penix, it's a very insulated asset to where guys like Kenny Pickett maintained or increased their value going from year 1 to year 2. So a guy like Michael Penix, who's, like you said, probably going to be starting in 2 years, he's not going to lose value unless the Falcons do something absolutely insane and take another quarterback.
Right.
But so you're essentially just kind of drafting like a 2025 first round pick. And if you're a team that has a surplus at quarterback, maybe you're in a super flex league with 2 high-end starters and some questionable depth, like Penix is a worthwhile pick because the QB market the actual QB market when you step into Superflex leagues is insane. It depends on the league landscape, but if you're quarterback needy in Superflex leagues, like Seth and I both have experienced this firsthand in the Dynasty Roundtable Startup League, it's rough out there.
Yeah.
Like Seth is sending me like a mid-second for Gardner Minshew, and I can't afford to take it. These are starting quarterback.
It's your best currency, right?
Exactly. It's seriously turning out to be just like the real NFL, where you're either going to have to pay top dollar to get a guy, obviously outside of like the Justin Fields fringe starters, or you're going to have to take them high in the draft.
Right.
Like,
they're going to be the cheapest at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so I really think it's not going to be this aggressive, 6 quarterbacks in however many, in 12 picks or whatever. It's not going to be that aggressive going forward, but the days of fringe starter prospects making it to the contending teams at the back end of the first round, I think are drawing to a close unless we have a drastically bad quarterback class.
Yeah, which I mean, next year right now they're kind of predicting that maybe it's not so great, but I feel like that we literally every year something's not great, and then by the time we get there, it's like, oh, this guy really came out of nowhere. Oh, this guy really came out of nowhere. But I have Knicks there, and Knicks. If I'm drafting Knicks there, I'm probably not keeping Knicks, but it's the best form of currency you can have, and it is next to impossible to make a trade in Superflex without giving the quarterback back. So that's that's why I'm gonna take Knicks there. And I like I said, I like Penix more, so I have him over him, and I'm okay with waiting. But that's you get into, let's say we're talking startup. By the end of the second round, you're about out of quarterbacks. And then it's Dak Prescott as basically our QB 13 and our ADP before the draft, and then after that you have Brock Purdy, which I like. I'm a Niners fan, and then it's like, do you love Tua? I like Jared Goff. I think he's good. But then it's Watson, which I know people don't love. Kirk Cousins, who's coming off an Achilles. It's Bryce Young. It's Baker Mayfield. It's Matthew Stafford. All fine quarterbacks. But is that what you want to hinge your? If those guys are your starters, if you got a really good team, you're probably like, I'm good. But for the most part, then you're into your Derek Carrs and your Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson's, Geno Smiths. It gets in a 12-team league. It gets really, really dry, really, really quick. So you need I want the best form of currency, which is why I keep Drake May and Jaden Daniels up higher than some of those receivers. I got him in the second tier after Caleb and Marvin Harrison, because I probably won't keep either one of them, but I can at least go in there and now I can make a play for a quarterback. I was just on the clock at 1-4. I traded it for Kyler Murray. That's a known asset that you can go in, and he's had top 5 seasons. I know he can play in this league. You might not like him. You might think he's injury prone. Whatever. I'll take the known here. So that's kind of the way that I look at it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to execute that, because Seth and I have been some of the biggest proponents for Kyler Murray that you can find, and being able to turn, like you said, into that known asset is so big in Dynasty, and that's how you keep yourself from taking on all this risk that comes with a rookie pick. Yeah, Drake May is an awesome prospect. I'm a Patriots fan. Really would love for him to pan out.
Sure.
But in that situation, in that supporting cast, I don't think any single one of us would be surprised if we're sitting here a year later going uh-oh.
Well, we know it's 50-50 pretty much, right?
Literally.
So,
look at the 2021 class with outside of Trevor Lawrence. We thought, maybe Zach Wilson was going to be something, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance, everybody had him super high. So it just, again, there are going to be some swings and misses, but in the long run, I think it's a good bet to make on these quarterbacks. And like you said, if you take Knicks, you don't have to keep them if you don't like Knicks. It's one of the only picks that I think the value either stays the same or grows a little bit when you take the player. The picks are what's in the box? Family Griffin, Family Guy, Peter Griffin. What's in the box? It could be a boat type of deal. That's what a pick is, and that's how you can sell a pick. But you can really sell quarterback too, to a quarterback needy team.
Right.
And so, Matt, you said something that just kind of blew my mind a little bit. There are guys out there in leagues that I'm in that are trying to get out of the 111 or the 112, and they're like, give me a 2025 next year. It's like, well, why wouldn't you just draft Michael Penix? Like, or like if he's sitting there, like why? That's exact. You said it. It's like that's better than trading for a 2025 pick because you get the quarterback, you get the position that you probably want anyway next year potentially, and you get the player this year. Like
you should be clamoring for him because the odds of Michael Penix being worth the 105 next year, if this quarterback class really is bad, is a lot higher than his value being the 205. There's that stability. And like, if you have that known asset next year when things are bad, like there's going to be people who are going to be trading early to mid first round picks for Michael Penix next year if that quarterback class does turn out to be poo-poo.
Right. And how many quarterbacks did we see injured last year? Kirk being one of them who they just signed. I mean, week one, Penix could be on the field for them because that's the plant leg of a 36-year-old quarterback, which, hey, there's usually quarterbacks are fine with most injuries. Rodgers is a non-plant. Kirk's is a plant. How much different is it? I'm not sure. But there could also be week 6 that you see Penix because you get these coming back from these kind of things. How many times does a hammy pop up? Where you can't get over it for 4 or 5 weeks. And then Penix is out there during the offseason throwing it around like crazy to all these guys. And then he comes in there in the first cut, and then they're like, well, maybe after next year we could trade Kirk or we could figure out a way to get some of this money off the cap. And we're rolling with Penix. And, like you said, next year, I love the idea of saying next year's basically a 2025. Hey, I love that. And then on top of that, like, they're not planning on picking up that high. The Falcons, that is, they're not planning on drafting that high again. Like if Kirk goes well or Penix goes well, they're going to be in the back half. Plus, there's some tampering stuff going on. Maybe they lose a pick. That might be a little more conspiracy theory ish. But like there's some serious potential ramifications for a tampering violation where they lose picks. What do you want? You want your team to be in QB purgatory, or you want to take 2 good shots and have a chance? To be rock solid for 12 years here. I'll take that one. I know it's not fun now, but if it's just like Jahmyr Gibbs. Everybody hated that pick until now. Nobody cares at all where you took Jahmyr Gibbs, rather, right?
Yeah, exactly. Before we transition onto another hopefully debate, I want to we talked about kind of flipping these picks for a known commodity, and I had a lesser grade of the same kind of example, and I want to know what you guys think. So I'm in a 2 QB best ball dynasty, and I have nobody behind Stroud and Burrow. Competing team where, obviously, as you can probably recall, I didn't have either of those quarterbacks in my starting lineup in the playoffs because they were both hurt. So I'm kind of staring down the barrel of Bo Nix at 109, and I trade 109 for Baker Mayfield.
Oh yeah, I'll do that.
Oh yeah, Baker Mayfield. Yeah, and Baker Mayfield still has his Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and who'd they draft? They McMillan out of Washington. Yep. They add to the mix.
UDFA, but yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, I love Baker, man. Like I'd probably do that. 109 for Baker. I think it's fair. At least it's in the ballpark.
Once again, it's known, like you said, to lead it off with. It's no. Now you do lose Canales, who's been a QB whisperer through the last 2 steps of his, process. So we'll kind of see what that's going to be like. But you've at least had success now with Baker with those guys. They all seemingly wanted to stick around. I'm down with that.
All right, cool. My validation checkbox is checked, and now we can talk about 2 of the it's the RB1 debate. We have it nearly every year, and it's back again. So Jonathan Brooks versus Trey Benson, the heavyweight dogfight. Casey, let's kick it off at value because they are going a little bit separate. It seems that Jonathan Brooks is kind of the clear RB1 at ADP, but at value, who are you taking?
If they're, I don't know, if it's that much of a gap, if there's 4 or 5 picks, I'll just take the cheaper one, I guess, because I got them in the same tier. And I guess I don't really feel terribly strong about either one of them. Brooks coming off the ACL, and obviously Miles Sanders is there still in Chuba, so maybe to start the season it's a little bit more of a committee, and the other one has James Conner in the way. Now, does he survive? Does he get cut? Does he survive? What goes on? In these instances, I'll usually take the easy way out and just say I'll take the cheaper one. I don't like I said, they're in the same tier for me, so it really doesn't matter all that much. How do you guys feel about this?
Yeah, it's I feel very similarly to you, Casey, but I think Jonathan Brooks, like if you're gonna make me rank one ahead of the other, it's Jonathan
I would
Brooks
agree.
for me.
I would agree.
Because of the draft capital. I like, we were talking it out on the couch as it happened. Me and Memphis were just sitting there and we're going, man, I think this is a lot better than people think. Like Dave Canales obviously was the offensive coordinator for Rashad White and unlocked Rashad White last year. And you think about this Carolina offense, it's kind of a mishmash of just, it's like the island of misfit toys. It's like, this is a terrible example, but I was talking to Maddie about it. It's almost like the Carolina Panthers are like the abusive stepfather who's trying to make amends for the abuse that they've bestowed upon their quarterback and Bryce Young. They're like, we'll get you a tight end, we'll get you a running back, we'll draft Xavier Legette, we'll do whatever it takes, man. We'll trade for Deontay Johnson. We're doing all these things to try to make this work. And for that reason, I think Bryce Young is a buy, regardless of how you feel about him, because they're doing everything they can. They signed those 2 guards, one of them to $100 million contract. Like, they're doing everything they can, at least how they feel like that they're doing what they think is right. I think they're throwing as much poop at the wall, and they're seeing what sticks here is what I think, because you still got Jonathan Mingo there too. But it's all good for Bryce Young. And I think it's good for Jonathan Brooks too, because not only does the offensive line get upgraded, but this is going to be a bad team. What does Jonathan Brooks do well? He catches passes out of the backfield. He's going to get a lot of negative game script dump offs. And in those PPR leagues, that's going to be really key. And again, this class, he might fall out of the first round, especially if Penix and Nix go in the first round. He might fall out of the first round. You might be able to get him in early second round. And there I'm all in on a Jonathan Brooks. I think Trey Benson is probably going to go a little bit later, but a phenomenal landing spot for him as well, right behind James Conner. He's probably not going to play a ton right away. Maybe he does. James Conner's 29 years old. You couldn't really ask for a much better landing spot as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think for a while I had Benson over Brooks because of the landing spot, but I was called back to a conversation that Seth and I had with John Lobb, who was an incredible resource for college football and context of player stats in terms of personnel and coaches. And we kind of stumbled upon a really interesting nugget where Mike Norvell, the head coach, we lost Seth. I'm going to keep going through this.
I think you just have to clean that camera, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my camera right now. So I'm trying. I don't think I can actually bounce, which is what I wanted to do, but we'll just power through it. Okay. It's going to be a fuzzy, you're going to think you're drunk if you're looking up at my camera, but I swear you're sober unless you are drunk, and then you're drunk. So,
but Trey Benson, Florida State, played under Mike Norvell, who is famous for giving guys like Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson, and I think we listed off 2 other guys. Oh, Kenny Gainwell is one of them. And there's someone else that I'm missing, but just force feeding them targets at the running back position. In fact, if you go team by team, there was always a running back that kind of stood out in terms of being a role in the passing game. And Trey Benson, it wasn't that guy in either of his seasons at Florida State. So Mike Norvell, who's just infamous for having his RB involved in the passing game, looked at Trey Benson and said, we can't really do that with you. Because they had Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, but was the Florida State
and Jaheim Bell.
Yeah, and Jaheim Bell, but were they so good that a quality pass catching RB wasn't going to come in and get targets? No, they weren't. The LSU offense with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even that was enough for Clyde to get a decent share of that offense. So it does stick out that, Trey Benson's kind of the one guy in the past 5 or so seasons that hasn't had that role. And Jonathan Brooks kind of proved with a 72nd percentile college target share that he probably can be that guy at the next level. And when you look at offensive rosters, while James Conner is a question mark, he is a proven commodity as a pass catcher. And Chuba Hubbard, as much as I like him, is not, and neither is Miles Sanders. Hubbard should have had a 10+% target share last year. There was no reason for it not to happen, but he couldn't go out there and earn that for himself, especially with Bryce Young running for his life. So to go out with the 14th pick in the second round or something like that, and get a quality pass catcher, do it all back like Jonathan Brooks. I really like the landing spot in Carolina more than I originally did when the pick was first made.
Yeah, no, I like you guys. I think Seth, you really knocked about everything I've said about Jonathan Brooks right out of the park there. So I would tend to agree. If you're going to make me pick, that's the way I would lean as well. Does the ACL with Brooks, could there be, by the time Brooks is 100% healthy and you feel good about him, in the same time, could Connor have gotten hurt, or Trey Benson has emerged as the one? Does that change anything for you, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that is a concern. That's probably why I had him ranked so low initially.
I'm not concerned about the ACL, just the first half of the season.
Sure,
I guess.
Sure. Yeah, these younger players astound me of how, and I'm not saying it's not a serious injury, because it obviously is, but it's astounding how quickly they can recover now from these ACL injuries. And Jonathan Brooks is a younger player. It's concerning, but you're right. I mean, there's a chance, he misses maybe first couple games, maybe 3-4 games, who knows? You would think Carolina would do their best to set him up and
right,
not rush him
of not being very good, and then even if he's not out, maybe it's just kind of ease him in to action. So that was kind of my thoughts of, does that weigh into anything of what you're thinking here?
That could be good for us, us Jonathan Brooks fans, because the people are, some dynasty gamers might panic and go, why aren't they using him? Well, he's just recovering from an ACL injury. Right. That's why. And maybe he doesn't perform well at first, and I would say if that happens, it's not time to panic. It's probably just due to that injury. And I think he's going to be fine because he's young. Now, who knows? It could also blow up in your face, but these are the calculated risks that we take in Dynasty. So I think that could benefit us later on down the road. So that's, I think, something to write in the notebook and go, if there's somebody panicking about Jonathan Brooks because he's not getting on the field, maybe a Miles Sanders sighting is out there, which Memphis said Miles Sanders is going to be, I thought it was kind of disrespectful, but he said Miles Sanders is going to be selling cars here soon. I think maybe there's a spot for him in the XFL or whatever the spring league is. The
Argonauts have a week.
The Argonauts,
they could
maybe he can go play for Mark Trestman somewhere. But anyway, I just think it's all, Dynasty is so much of using somebody else's momentum against them,
right?
And using sort of these narratives that I think at times are crazy, just that people overreact to, and just kind of, okay, I'll take your momentum. I'm interested in this player. Obviously, you enter into it with an opinion, and then you go from there, and just kind of go whichever the way, go where the value is. So anyway, that was a tangent. Matt Babich, save the show.
Yeah, I think as you started painting that scenario for the value dip in Jonathan Brooks, it started reminding me of Jonathan Taylor's first 8 weeks, where it wasn't the exact same scenario, right? He was not coming off an ACL, but severely underperforming our expectations, kind of getting used to the NFL. And it was, bye. Week 8 or whatever it was came when he had just his breakout game, and then it was over, so it could have that similar feel to where it may take him a little bit of time to get healthy and acclimated. It's not easy to go without your first rookie minicamp being able to walk through things with the team, really get ingrained in the NFL. Kendre Miller, not the same level of prospect, but same situation where he had to miss the entire minicamp with a leg injury, and he kind of came back. It seems a little too early as those injuries kind of lingered throughout his rookie season. So the Panthers are probably going to opt to take that safer route, let him take his time to get acclimated. And we know that these things aren't really a predictor of future success, especially when health is involved. So if there is any sort of dip there, I mean, it's obviously a great idea to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And per usual, we are we're just like getting into it. This has been awesome so far, but we do have to run an informative segment per our duty on this show. So here's a message from the Podfather about the FFPC, but we have much, much more with Casey, the FF Dynasty, on the other side of this. So stay tuned.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
All right, promo code Underworld on the FFPC. Those leagues are starting to kick off right now. Some Dynasty probably too.
Yeah,
Good deal there.
We got drafts this weekend for FFPC, kicking off the rookie drafts this coming weekend. So I can vouch for FFPC. I'll give you an extra plug there, man. If you're in a dynasty and you've run out of friends to play with, or you don't trust other people, man, their leagues don't fold. Especially if you're interested in playing for more cash, it's a really good way to get out there and not feel like you're going to lose. This league's going to fold up, so you have to win, right? You know, everybody's like, well, this league might fold in 3 years, so I'm going to just do everything. You know, FFPC, you don't have to worry about that. They've been running a great ship for a long time, been playing a lot of ball over there. So anyway.
Which I've always found that to be a fascinating thing. Like, I have to push the chips all the way in because this league might not be around in 3 years. You do realize that by doing that, you're increasing the chances of the league not being around in 3 years.
Right. Like, yeah.
Anyway, I just always find that hilarious.
So play best ball, people, if you're going to do this kind of stuff. What are we doing?
Yeah, come on. There's some integrity that goes into this too. So play with good people if you can. So let's get back to the rankings debate, and we might have to do some of this rapid fire, but I don't want to do this one rapid fire because this was a pretty intense debate between Cody Carpentier and Alex Dunlap, who both work for Orange Bloods. So they both covered the Texas University football team very closely. JaLynn Polk or Adoni Mitchel, who do you have higher in your rankings?
I got AD higher in the rankings.
Okay.
I feel like you couldn't look at more polar opposite of prospects here, right? You got AD Mitchel, who's just like dripping with upside. He's got everything you want. He's fast. The combine was good. He plays that X outside receiver. He could really venture into a number one guy. He's, like I said, dripping with upside. He comes in with bow tie and slacks. He's a hedge fund guy. He could make you millions, but you might fuck around and catch a charge, and he might cost you some cash, right? That's kind of the way I feel about AD Mitchel. Like, he could take you to the top. He could be a top 12 receiver, or there's some holes in the analytical profile. There's some holes in the tape where you're not trying as hard as you could on maybe every single route, and all that kind of stuff is kind of bubbled up to the surface a little bit. And then you got the other side of it of JaLynn Polk, where this is a guy who, he's going to come to work with dirty clothes, hard hat. He's going to have to work his way up to the company to become and eventually own it to really become anywhere near, I think, what AD Mitchel could potentially be. But it feels like there's more of a floor built in with JaLynn Polk, right? Like, it feels to me that like JaLynn Polk would be chasing sort of Jacoby Myers-like production, would be kind of what I would be seeing from JaLynn Polk kind of early on. Not that I'm throwing shade. I'm actually giving Jacoby Myers praise here. It's double digits pretty much every game because JaLynn Polk can do a lot. I think the fit for the organization is really good with JaLynn Polk. They're, like I said, complete polar opposites. JaLynn Polk's blocking his ass off. JaLynn Polk's not letting balls hit the ground. He's going full effort, but he just doesn't have the athleticism, which isn't everything. In this game, JaLynn Polk's great against zone. I think 83% win rate in reception perceptions, right up of him. Much better. Not great against press, but I'm so sick and tired of listening to everybody. Like, a lot of these guys aren't good against press. They're in college. It's something that I think you can learn. It's every single guy who's a little. I mean, JaLynn Polk's not that small, but it's always struggles against press. It's like, all right, I got it. But yeah. I would go AD Mitchell here, and I like, since no shade on JaLynn Polk there, but it seems like just it's the upside play in the middle of the second that I'd be willing to take, where JaLynn Polk's probably somewhere near the same range, at least from what I've been seeing, and I'd rather take the swing on AD Mitchell. The question with AD Mitchell is, can Anthony Richardson support more than one or two guys?
Bingo. Yep.
Is really part of the equation here that I think keeps him down, because we expect the draft capital maybe to be a little higher, especially when the gambling odds opened. He was first round, gambling odds to be taken over Xavier Worthy, actually. And then as things went, it felt like a big slide but then when you look at it on paper, it's like, well, he only went to the mid end of the second round here. It really wasn't that bad. But Anthony Richardson's essentially coming into his rookie year. We know he could potentially break fantasy, and I really like him, but how many guys can he support? What's the upside? And on the other side of that, Drake May, if he hits, I think he's a guy who can support multiple guys, but it's a question of if he will hit or not. So where are you guys weighing in on this debate here?
Seth, I'm kind of hoping you're gonna differ from me, so I'm gonna have you go first.
Okay, I actually have JaLynn Polk ahead of AD Mitchell, and here's why. I think the situation right away for him is better, and JaLynn Polk on tape, I think he had the best hands in the class.
Yeah.
So I think he's really going to help out Drake May, and then I like the way these New England receivers complement each other. At least the two that they took in the draft, and Javon Baker is like, oh my God, like Javon Baker's athletically a ton of upside there. So I like how these two, what I think are going to be outside receivers, how they're going to complement each other. Now, the big question is Drake May going to be good? I like Drake May. I like some of what he did, but this is a quarterback that, depending on who you talk to, some people say, well, he's not ready to start in the NFL. And then other people are like, oh, he's Josh Allen, man. It's just so and I want to like Drake May, but there was a lot on tape that reminded me, I thought he was closer to Daniel Jones than Josh Allen, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I think he does have some work to do. So again, you talked about it though. I think there's going to be more passing volume in New England, but I'm not sure how much more, because both of these quarterbacks are entering in essentially their rookie season. And I guess I'm just banking in that there's going to be more immediate opportunity for Polk right away. And AD Mitchell is going to be the second, third option on his team. I mean, I asked Memphis, because he's a Colts fan. He said, who's the wide receiver 2 now on the team? Is it AD Mitchell? He's like, I think it might be Josh Downs. So anyway, it's that Downs had a really good year last year too. So the volume definitely is with Polk, but what do you think, Babich? I have him literally ranked back to back in my rankings. So
Reggie Wayne loves Josh Downs, who's a coach over there, for the receiver coach for the Colts. So
he should love Josh Downs. He's really good. So I think quickly I want to say two asides. One, I love this pick respectively for both teams. It makes more sense for the Colts to go out and get a guy with just massive upside, like Adoni Mitchell already having Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, and Jonathan Taylor taking up a healthy percent of those targets as well. And then the Patriots taking some guy who has a better floor and who they perceived to be the harder worker. I don't want to get into any sort of character comments from random anonymous sources, but they went out and they got the guy who they thought fit the best in the shortest window of time, because what they're doing is trying to not miss on any surrounding prospects that have a relation to Drake May being successful. They want to know if Drake May is good or not as quickly as they can. And since they have to put together this roster, yeah, it would have been nice to offer the right amount to get Calvin Ridley. They lost out on that negotiation, and they didn't go out and try and get some fake alpha like Xavier Legette or somebody. They opted to take the money ball pieces, get it back in the aggregate with somebody who they think is a safe pick, and they don't have to worry about JaLynn Polk, hitting or not, or being some superstar, so that they can tell whether or not Drake May is a success. So I really liked that pick from the Patriots. I like Javon Baker as well, but Kendrick Bourne's going to be the starting X day one. So it's going to be Bourne at X, Polk at Z, and Pop Douglas in the slot. And then also, do you really say, I'm not going to skip over the fact that you said Drake May reminded you more of Daniel Jones. We're going to talk about that.
I've said this on the show multiple times.
I would like you to find a single Daniel Jones throw from Duke that resembled anything, the 75th percentile throw that we've seen Drake May pull off in college. They're not even, maybe like height and build wise, like the ability to run, like I guess you could say like, yeah, that reminds you more of Daniel Jones because he's not the tier of prospect that Josh Allen is. But like as a player, Daniel Jones is one of the last people I saw when I watched Drake May throw the football. As a runner, I get it, right? Like kind of that sneaky athleticism. They're a bigger guy willing to go, but Daniel Jones does not have that arm. I don't know if Drake May is going to be good or not, but he sure as hell has a better chance than Daniel Jones ever did.
I just know, here's what I know, Matt Babich. I know that all these people who are comparing this kid to Josh Allen are out of their goddamn minds. They're out of their mind. I watched Josh Allen play live.
I agree.
I watched him play live against my Iowa Hawkeyes. It was Wyoming, Iowa. It's the first game of the season. It's amazing. This dude, Iowa's got some studs on the defensive line, linebackers, always. He had nobody to throw to. And I watched this guy scramble out to his left, shrug off guy, like 4 or 5 guys, come back to his right. He's getting tackled, throw off his back foot, like 50 yards down the field. And I'm going, if he could ever figure out this accuracy thing, like if he could ever figure out how to throw a slant, look out. Like this guy's going to be really good. I just don't see the it factor. Like I saw the it factor with Josh Allen, and I know that's the bro science of all bro science things. Like I just didn't see it when I saw Drake May play. Now I'm happy to be wrong because I'm probably going to be drafting him in the top 5 in my Superflex Dynasty rookie drafts because like we talked about before, he's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL draft. I think the situation's a little bit better than people give it credit for because of the draft capital that the Patriots spent on wide receiver. And, Pop Douglas had a pretty decent year last year too. They still have Juju. They have Hunter Henry. Like it's not a completely barren cupboard. It's not, Atlanta situation or anything like that, but they still have Juju Smith-Schuster.
I was hoping that shrug wasn't for Hunter Henry because we were going to have to be.
He's going to have to come over the top rope with a steel chair.
I think they cut Juju Smith-Schuster for what it's worth.
Oh, they did? Oh, bye-bye.
No. They didn't yet. I think they will cut him.
Oh, they think they will.
As a post June 1st, I think they only eat $2 million in dead cap. He posted something on his Instagram that kind of made it look like he was waiting to get a call like he's getting traded or something like that. He doesn't fit in this offense. He quite frankly
took it out. You can't be taking it out on social media either.
Yeah, there's that. I wouldn't want that guy on my team. That's
that's Antonio Brown behavior.
Similarly to
another
retired
Mike Tomlin. It's another Mike Tomlin cast off. It's unbelievable.
Similarly to retired Brett Favre, the only thing that Juju Smith-Schuster has left to offer the NFL is a pick of his junk.
Oh, wow. We don't have a sound effect for that. I wish we need to get sound effects for
if this was we got to
like
steal. Yeah, we got to steal the Mind of Mansion ones. We got to the Boeing or
Boeing. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Was Polk rated higher than McMillan for you guys?
Coming into it,
for me, yeah.
No, see, I'm a McMillan guy. I had McMillan.
You want to talk about McMillan?
No, we don't have to talk about McMillan.
I love McMillan.
let's Go ahead. Sorry,
I was just gonna say the fact that he slid out of the draft to me was no, it was surprising. I truly did not expect him to come anywhere close to being a UDFA. I think he could be a guy that the NFL looks back on and say like, wow, we missed. Because a lot of people do say he looked like the wide receiver 2 at Washington, but take it away on what you see in JaLynn McMillan.
Well, it was, there was a Scott Barrett tweet that we were talking Polk of just, yards per route run when McMillan's on the field and Polk's on the field. And basically, McMillan's always just trump carded Polk. Does that mean anything to you guys? Or, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
It's an obvious red flag. I think the reason Polk got so high on my rankings later on in the process was because of what I saw on film, which, I'll admit I'm no expert, but, guys like Matt Harmon who are in on him, Steve Smith kind of talking about what he thinks about Jalen Polk as well. Guys who are good at evaluating receivers that I kind of listen to are in on him. And so admittedly it could be, some filtering, a cognitive bias going on where I ended up kind of finding people who I agreed with and let that kind of influence my opinion, which is why I understand that going into it, I could come out of the rookie draft completely flipped on McMillan versus Polk, but the draft capital kind of sealed the deal. Whereas, an NFL team thought Jalen Polk was a 2nd round pick and no NFL team thought Jalen McMillan was a NFL draft pick.
Even a pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in a similar territory with Matt. I could have sworn McMillan got drafted. Am I crazy?
Maybe he did. I was looking through,
No, he got drafted in the 3rd round of the Bucs.
Yeah.
I thought you were just fucking around with me.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, he got drafted he got decent draft.
3rd round of the Bucs, baby.
I hate to blame Player Profiler, but I was scrolling through, just kind of looking at.
I thought you were just messing around.
It said UDFA next to his name, and so I don't know. It's 3 days of NFL drafts, man.
I thought you were
screen, I'm like, yeah, that's what happened.
I thought maybe you liked Oregon, or you just you hated McMillan. I thought you were just messing around.
I legitimately had it in my heart that he didn't get drafted.
No.
I had no idea. I was thinking the same thing, Casey. I was like, wait, where does this Washington Jalen McMillan hate come from? Damn, Matt Babich. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know you were a secret. But yeah, I thought McMillan was fine. Like out of all there were 3 receivers, I had him ranked below Polk, but I wasn't. I didn't have a strong opinion either way. I liked him. I guess I'm a bad person to ask, but we should probably, let's see what do we got left here. Do you have a strong opinion on Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Legette, KC, or where do you think, rapid fire? Because I feel like these are 2, I don't know, that are probably that they got into the 1st round, but I think some people might be sour on them just because it's Carolina and the 49ers haven't traded Debo yet or Brandon Ayuk yet. So where do you have those guys in your rankings?
Yeah, I mean, Legette is basically take the shot if you think what you saw in the 5th year was what you're going to see, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with he's probably middle of the 2nd for me, where I'd be willing to take the shot at that point. But Pearsall is probably, a spot or 3 ahead of him. Yeah. Is he in a spot where I don't know exactly how much he's going to play or where he's going to play? But I mean, San Fran, there's not really a 3rd receiver that sticks out there, but so they went ahead and drafted Cowing and Ricky Pearsall, right? Is there an offense? I guess instead of going into a long diatribe because you're up against it, is there an offense that you trust much more than San Francisco to put a receiver out there and put him in the right position to succeed? He can kind of play slot or outside, so I think you'll be cooking up things for Pearsall. So I'm okay with the Pearsall pick. That could just be 49ers fan in me, but he was kind of a 3rd round guy who I was absolutely drafting before this. So then he gets the draft capital and moves up. I think you got to take him front half of the 2nd round here for me. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? I don't want to get too down the rabbit hole of what the 49ers do.
Yeah. I just don't think you can. I can't spend a pick on Xavier Legette.
Okay.
You look at so I ran this quick math kind of earlier. Let's see if I can kind of recreate what I did. But so I would expect, if we're just going to predict next year's target shares, I'm going to give Thielen and Deontay Johnson 23% each, going back to their usage last year. You can argue that there's no way that like a 34-year-old Adam Thielen can keep that up, and I would say that's a fair argument. But let's say that 46% of the targets go to Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen if this season proves to be like their previous production. And then probably another, just to be conservative, another 12% between Jonathan Brooks and Chuba Hubbard over the course of the season. So now we're at 58% of the targets. And then let's say another 12% from the entire 3 tight ends that they have on their roster. So Tommy Tremble, Jatavian Sanders, and then whoever number 3 is, probably pretty safe between all 3 of those guys. So now we're already accounting for 70% of the team's targets. And I think when I did it the first time, I got to 80. I think I was a little bit more conservative here, but you got the Jonathan Mingo and Xavier Legette, who his max season was like 500 receiving yards in a season. He just doesn't have the college production. Legette.
No, I think he had.
He had like 15. I think he had 1,500, and like he was up there.
He slayed this year, but it was just his 5th year. Now there's some context that you could put to the Legette story, which is kind of crazy. Which obviously, again, that's why I didn't go into a diatribe on that. But he had a great year. I think he outpaced Marvin Harrison in some categories, outpaced Rome Odunze in some categories. He was a productive receiver. He's just old. So, I don't know how much you hold against him there.
300 receiving yards ish throughout his first 3 years is kind of what I'm going for. And you got to hold him against him a little bit, because he's more of a, you look into the context of his story, and it's not that long that he's been kind of an NFL receiver. There's a lot that he's been through, and it hasn't been like he's played a wide receiver position since he was in high school and everything like that. He kind of came along late, and so it's to be expected in part that he's going to be a late breakout. But with his skill set not being as well-rounded as a lot of other prospects, he's more of a project. And quite frankly, like even with his athletic profile, like kind of almost like, we missed on Jonathan Mingo, so let's try and hit on Jonathan Mingo with Xavier
our guy.
Yeah. And when you're kind of fighting for, scraps in an offense, I'm going to go with a guy like and Ricky Pearsall. It's a tough debate because Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel don't seem like they're leaving town.
Well, I would almost argue that one of them's out of town next year. Regardless
by next year, exactly. But and then you could say the same thing though for Carolina, where Thielen's probably not going to be around for a lot longer, and then it kind of comes down to quality of offense and the type of opportunities they're going to get within that. And I'm going to take probably the bet on the Kyle Shanahan first round pick, as opposed to the David Tepper, David Canales first round pick to pair in an offense where I think Bryce Young is good. We don't know how good. This offense was really bad last year. If you're going to be fighting for scraps in a bad offense for a couple of years, I don't care how good you are. You're probably not going to keep your first round value in 2 years.
Yeah, I would say I have a buddy, and I'd be interested to see how you feel about this, Casey, since you're a Niners fan. My buddy's a Niners fan too, and he seems to think that one of these, like the post June 1st, is a big deal for dealing one of these wide receivers, whether it be Deebo or Brandon Ayuk. And he thinks the Cowing pick to go with the Pearsall pick is a sign that like Brock Purdy is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously. And like the reason Deebo, like they schemed Deebo close to the line of scrimmage because this is according to him, that they didn't trust Jimmy to throw the ball down the field. And so now they feel like they can open up the offense a little bit more with
Correct.
Purdy. And so you put those pieces of the puzzle together. It's like, okay, now the Pearsall pick makes more sense. The Cowing pick a little bit later makes sense because, they're up against a contract with those guys. And if they feel like they can get similar production out of Pearsall and they trust, Brock Purdy to throw the ball down the field more than Jimmy Garoppolo, then it makes a lot of sense. And so for that reason, I think you're probably, if you're picking Pearsall right now in the situation that he's in, I think you're buying on him low because I think the chances of them moving on from one of those wide receivers is pretty good. And so I think his he's got a pathway to opportunity where Xavier Legette, it's like, well, Jonathan Mingo's here and Adam Thielen's here and Deontay Johnson's here. And we just drafted a tight end and we just drafted a running back. And who knows if Bryce Young's good? We think he can be good, but who knows? So if you're asking me between the two, I'm going to take the long road. I don't even know if it's like the long way around, but I think Pearsall's the answer.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I said, they haven't had a true necessarily third slot guy. Plus, whenever anybody's injured, like either Debo or Ayuk is banged up and out, like they really struggle to have any other receiver. And Juwan Jennings has been awesome in key spots for them, but he's not really like a true slot guy, which you could plug Cowing in there, or Pearsall can do either one of those things. They also kind of struggle a little bit in man-to-man, which Pearsall gives you kind of a man beater right off the rip of somebody who of a team that kind of struggled in when somebody could lock them up kind of man-to-man. So that gives you one other option. And I just feel like with drafting Pearsall and Cowing, it just gives you a different, like your buddy was saying, it gives you a different option. Like Shanahan's already probably cooking up some different things that we haven't seen from them because these are the guys they had, and this is kind of what they could do. We had to make sure that Brock was going to take this next step, and we saw some different things from them. But I think now we can bring in a whole nother bunch of different options, and one of those guys moves out of the way next year. Cowing comes in, operates the slot. Pearsall moves outside, whether that's Ayuk or Debo who leaves. I don't know, but I love Debo. I think he's awesome. I don't want to leave. And if I'm the 49ers, I go talk to both of those guys. I don't want to get rid of either one of them. Like, look, Ayuk, you play on this 5th year. Maybe we'll pay you next year, but let's go try to win. Y'all want to win? Like, I know you want to get Ayuk's going to get money regardless, right? Whether it's from the Niners or somebody else. He's a good receiver. So I just look at it as I think the Niners are going to try to go with this group of guys and go. And plus, I think Cowing also offers, like with kickoff rules changing, is a guy that later, I don't know if we're going to get to the question of asking who you like as later round guys, but Jacob Cowing, I mean, you guys are the player profiler guys. The breakout age and the dominator are through the roof. He's up there with, let me find the sheet here. He's up there with guys like Devontae Smith, Tank Dell, Malik Neighbors, Jordan Addison with college first downs per route run versus man since 2008. Once again, a team who couldn't beat a lot of man-to-man coverage when they get locked up in that way. He's, breakout age is 95%, college team target share 99%, college dominator 99%, 80 and 90 catches the last 2 seasons. Like if you're looking for a guy to grab in the last round of your draft, Jacob Cowing is a guy. Now he's a little older and he's smaller, but I mean, this is the guy to kind of bank on. Plus, if you get punt return yards or kick return yards, he could be. They lost Ray McLeod, and so moving forward, I really do like the Cowing pick, and I love the Pearsall's got to be ahead of a Legette for me. I'll still take him. I'm not out on him. I like the story, and I like what I saw from him. I think there is some good upside there, but I understand being out, and so I'll push him to the late second.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and it's like, there's a ton of upside there too because there's a lot there, but if he's good, I mean, he's probably going to be the primary receiver in that offense. I would feel, given his upside, given his size and his speed. So I think we have to end it there. We got a sleeper from Casey, so I'm going to count that. But thank you so much for joining us. Give us your plugs. It's the FF Dynasty on YouTube. Give us what do you got to plug, Casey?
Come check us out over on the tubes there. We usually pumping out 3 to 4 to 5 days of content going out over there. You can find us on the podcast as well on any of your platforms of choice. Social media, we're not huge on the social media, but for sure, come over to that YouTube side of things. We got one of the best video editors in the game. We're putting together solid graphics, solid production. We have some local guys and some guys that we bring in. Actually, one of your guys, Austin Abbott, who helped
nice.
Profiler out. He comes on with us. So make sure you go check him out. He crushes the Twitter. So that's all we got. Just come check us out, man. Give us a shot.
Awesome. Matt, what do you have to plug this week?
It's one of the rare weeks I don't really have anything to plug these days. The rookie guide's out. Just kind of, I'm kind of waiting on the draft kit, honestly, at this point, prepping for that. But yeah, weekly shout out of the Player Profiler news team. I think we just hit 100,000 views on YouTube. So, go check out, all the great work that's being done there. And from a personal standpoint, you can find me on that YouTube channel and on the Player Profiler News Twitter, on Player Profiler Today on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Central. And that show is 7 days a week. So 7 days a week, you can catch the latest news in football and in fantasy football at 6 p.m. Central on the Player Profiler News YouTube and the News Twitter. In addition to that, all types of news write-ups. You can go on playerprofiler.com/news and see all of that. There's YouTube shorts. There's just content coming from the Player Profiler news team, doing a very good job at hitting their goal of being, one of the better kind of constant news source stream of information on social media. Bradley Stalder does an incredible job coordinating it, and they have a ton of incredible contributors. I'd like to think myself included there. But go check out that YouTube channel, check out that Twitter. You can find just bountiful content.
Not much to plug, huh?
Yeah, I know. From a personal standpoint, but since I play a role in it, I like to give them their shout out because they do a lot of work, and so they deserve that praise.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So again, I could tell you to follow me on Twitter. I say that every week, but I have a different kind of plug this week. I saw this on Twitter and I was like, this is pretty cool. Our guy Matty Kiwoom is he's shaving off his mullet, and I can't believe he's going to do this, but it's for a good cause. They're trying to raise money for cancer research. So again, if you want to check this out, go to Matty Kiwoom's Twitter. I mean, you should be following him anyway. And you can see the link is right there. You can see his mullet right there if you're not familiar with it. It's got pretty good, I've reposted it. A bunch of people at Player Profiler have reposted it. So go check that out. And if you have the means to give, by all means do so. If you don't, then you can just leave a comment for Matty and shout him out. But I just thought I'd do that. Because the mullet is going away, and I can't believe it, but it's for a good cause. So anyway, Casey, thank you so much for doing this. We got to do it again because we did not get to some of the items on our show sheet. There's so much to talk about, especially right after the NFL draft. So we can't thank you enough for coming on. And like I said, we'll have to have you on again. And you're in for a treat because we end the show. Matt Babich hates this part of the show, but we end the show the same time or the same way every time. And it's because, if you didn't know, I'm a Bears fan, a diehard Chicago Bears fan. And I was sick of Aaron Rodgers, as most Bears fans were. Sick of him having a minority stake in the team, meeting with George McCaskey every other Tuesday, being in on the board meetings and whatnot. And now he's with the Jets, and hopefully he can do well for Garrett Wilson. But I say every time, nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. Wiseman for Heisman, but you go look that up, Mark Wiseman. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.